That'll do. Do you know how many takes that took me? That took me so many takes. That's good enough. Hello all, so if you couldn't guess by that, and if you didn't know already, Christmas is fast approaching, winter is coming, and with Christmas comes presents. And you know what would make a fantastic present? My new book. This book would make a great gift for anyone in your life, or even yourself. If you know someone who's into names and words or just facts in general, this would be the perfect book for them. I'm tapping it to emphasize the point. It's full of interesting facts and trivia and etymology, all that great stuff. It's split into 15 easy to read chapters, all into easy to read segments. Go check it out. You know the drill by now. It's a really fun book, I promise you. And if you have worries and fears that the book won't arrive in time for the big day, well, I have no doubts that Amazon themselves will be able to deliver in time. Though if you don't want to order from Amazon, then why not check out Mango themselves? Mango are the guys who publish my books, and they're really great, and they're currently having a 20% off sale from all of their books if you buy directly from Mango personally. Go to their website, there'll be a link down below, 20% off all their books, including this book and my original book, The Original Names Was In Between Volume 1, I guess that's what we're calling it now. They're both 20% off over there. Go check out there for yourselves as well. However, if you do want to order through Amazon, then the best way to do that is by searching Word Origins book on Amazon and clicking the non-sponsored link. That helps Amazon's very own search algorithm and will allow more people to discover the book. And also, if you buy from Amazon, please do consider leaving a 5-star review, a glowing 5-star review. That'd be really appreciated. Thank you. However, what if you want to read this book and own this book, but don't want to buy it or be gifted it by a family member? Well, I have you covered too, as I'm going to be giving away free signed copies of the book. I should have grabbed 3 copies now. Imagine this times 3. 3 of these copies signed by myself, of course. It could be signed by someone else. I'll ask my mum to sign it if you want me to. That was a weird tangent. I'm going to be signing 3 copies of this book and giving away to 3 of you guys. And how exactly? Well, I will tell you how you can get your hands on one right now. As you know, I explain an awful lot of names to you guys, and now I want you to return the favor for me. This book is all about not only learning facts, but sharing facts with everyone. And I want you to share facts with me. I want you to tell me your favorite word origin, whether they're ones you've heard on the channel, one you read in my first book, or even one I haven't mentioned at all in any way. Share them with me. And out of all the word origins you guys send to me, I will pick 3 of those as my favorite, and those 3 people will receive signed copies of the book. Though the most important part of all of this is how to actually enter. And to enter, you must send your word origin into the email address originofnames@gmail.com. Only entries sent in via that email address will be considered. So don't leave a comment, don't tweet them, don't write your word origins on your forehead and come finding me in the street. I'll be impressed, but you won't be in competition to win the book. Just only through that email address. Only entries sent to originofnames@gmail.com will be redeemable, will be allowed, will be official. But I'm getting towards the end of the year and I'm just falling to pieces right now. That email address will be written down below. So go send your entries to that email address. They'll be the only ones considered. You can't believe I speak for a living, can you? And I shall reveal the 3 winners in my first video of the new year, which will be going live on the 10th of January 2022. That gives you guys like 3 weeks to find out word origin. So go get researching, go get fact finding, go watch old videos, go read my first book, go read the second book, go find facts and share them with me, please. Once again, only through email. You can write them on your forehead if you want to and go find me on the street. I'll still be impressed by that, as I mentioned, but it won't be official. And if you're still not convinced about wanting to have a copy of this book, well, here's another animated extract for you guys. The script for today's video comes from the occupations chapter of the book, and jobs are pretty important things, and some of them have pretty strange names. Hopefully, these entries from the book will make you realize that even some of the more mundane jobs have names of really interesting origins. This one might seem a tad obvious. I'm mentioning it first to cover ground on an awful lot of occupation titles, as the name of farmer encapsulates the most reoccurring way in which we create names for occupations, and that's with our good friend the suffix. The suffix is what we use to change a verb into a noun. Verbs are of course words for actions, and most jobs revolve around one key action in particular. With our farm example, the verb that best encapsulates their job is farm. So add an to the end and we have farmer. This is the way we create so many occupation names. Do you drive for a living? You're a driver. Do you clean for a living? You're a cleaner. Do you plumb for a living? You're a plumber. I really could go on. This convention is always being used and people get creative with it sometimes. A popular job in recent years is making YouTube videos for a living. YouTube is a noun already, but that hasn't stopped people adding to the end and creating YouTuber. Obviously farmers existed way before YouTubers, and while I intended on farmer just being a title to introduce this section with, it turns out farmer and farm have pretty interesting origins too. While we associate the occupation of farmers now with people who milk cows, grow crops and drive tractors, this wasn't always the case. Farmer comes from the verb of farm, of course, and this verb comes from Anglo-French roots, with their word of fermer meaning to rent. Over the years, this Anglo-French word became farm, but still meant to rent, meaning a farmer was someone who collected rent. Someone who collects debts is very different to someone who cultivates carrots. So how did the occupation title end up being applied to farmers as we know them today? In the 16th century, the land people grew crops on was often secured on a renting basis. So that verb of farm, meaning to rent, got applied to the land, as its name and its noun form became the name of people who worked on this rented land. Farmers. Farming like this existed way before the 16th century, and in this time farmers had different names. One I read was churl, which was just the old English word for peasantry. However, another old name for farmers was husbandman. Husband comes from old root meaning to care for something, and while we no longer call farmers husbandmen, we still use this term of husbandry when talking about looking after plants and animals. And of course, married men are called husbands, as traditionally they looked after their married partner. Seen by many as one of the manliest professions on our planet, though that's just a stereotype. In reality, anyone can be a lumberjack regardless of their gender or sex. I guess the primary reason as to why people think this job is so manly is due to that use of the name Jack, which is more popularly a male name. Lumberjack is of course a combination of the terms lumber and jack. Why aren't they known as Lumber Daves or Lumber Grahams? This is because in the past, Jack was a catch-all term for men in general. Any man could be called a jack. It's why this name appears in other sayings like jack of all trades and so on. Lumber is of course the name we use for chopped up wood. Considering this job revolves around chopping wood, then it makes sense as to why it would get used in this occupation. What I really like, however, is how we got this term of lumber for wood. Before being the name for chopped wood, lumber was and still is a verb meaning to move clumsily / awkwardly, as these huge planks of wood were awkward to move around. This verb of lumber is thought to have been applied to them. So with lumber being a word for clumsy and jack being a word for men in general, this occupation could really be seen as meaning clumsy men, which isn't quite as manly now, is it? As I mentioned, we are well beyond the point in which only men are allowed to chop down trees for a living. Should we really be using this term of lumberjack for women too? Well, it's a debated subject. I've read that female tree choppers can be called lumberjacks too. However, the term lumberjill has been thrown about too. I guess this derives from the nursery rhyme of Jack and Jill. I've also found some much more appropriate gender neutral terms too, like logger or forester. Maybe the term lumberjack will come tumbling down, just like the trees too someday. If you spend a lot of time watching the credits of a film like myself, perhaps in the hopes that there'll be an after credit scene, then there's no doubt you have seen this title pop up during that final scroll. Like myself, you may wonder to yourself every time, what on earth does a best boy do on a movie set? Well, to understand what the best boy does, we need to understand what the gaffer and key grip do. The gaffer is the title held by the head of the film's electrical department, and a key grip is the title held by the head of the film's grip department. Grip in film terms being the behind the scenes rigs. Both the gaffer and the key grip have a second in command. It's these second in commands that are the best boys. But how can they be the best if they're only second in command? Surely you'd want your best boy to be the top dog, right? Well, the story goes that in the past, when gaffers and key grips would need a hand with something, they would say something like, "Get me your best boy for the job." And for these best boys for the job, they earn that title for themselves. I know what you're wondering also. Yes, best boys can be girls too. I've read the term best girl can be used, as well as best person for a gender neutral title.
Fish is one of those words that doesn't have the most interesting origin. Fish have been around forever, and so has this word for them. It's thought to ultimately go back to Proto-Indo-European, with their word of pisc, which is similar to other languages' words for the creatures, like the Italian pesc or the Italian pez. P's and F's switching across languages isn't too uncommon. Think of the English father and the Latin pater. Anyway, that's a bit off topic. What you need to know is that fish is an old word and is not of the clearest of origins. So why have I chosen to cover it here? Well, it's because of the latter part of this occupation's name, monger. A fishmonger is someone who prepares and sells fish, like a butcher but for underwater animals. The monger part of this name roots to the Latin word of mango/mongo, which means a dealer/trader. It has nothing to do with the fruit or the illustrious publishers. So fishmonger simply means fish dealer. If this word means fish dealer, then why isn't it present in more occupation names? Why don't we call butchers meatmongers or grocers carrotmongers? Well, we may have in the past, but over the years those other titles usurped them. Monger does live on in some other names, however. Take an ironmonger, someone who trades iron and other metal goods, or even a warmonger, someone who deals in the brutal art of war. There are mongers all around us, though the fish types seem to be the most popular today. Psychologists and psychiatrists seem to have amassed an awful lot of nicknames over the years. Undoubtedly, the most popular of all of these has to be the term shrink. How on earth did a verb for making things smaller end up being a more jovial term for people who study the brain and its functions? It seems that this nickname for the occupation has origins in the native tribes of the Amazon rainforest. These tribes are known for preserving and shrinking down the heads of their enemies. These tribesmen were known as head shrinkers, and this act of shrinking heads was seen as a mystical, magical process for shaman to master. At first, it was this complete term of head shrinker that was applied to psychotherapists. This was in allusion to the strange stuff the Amazons did with the head. It's thought that the work psychotherapists did with brains and the head was similar in a way to what these tribes did. Well, at least similar enough to tease them with that name. It's thought that this term came about in the 1960s, and some specifically give the author Thomas Pynchon credit with coining the term in 1966 exactly. Since then, however, it seems that the term originally meant to mock and compare psychologists to shaman of the rainforest has been adopted by those in the role.
And there you have it. That's how 5 occupations got their names, and there's 5 more occupations within the pages of this book, as well as over 100 other etymologies, so please do consider ordering your copy today. And most importantly, don't forget to enter that competition. Once again, that's by going to originalnamesbook@gmail.com and sending me over your favourite word origin, and I'll pick my 3 favourites from your favourites to get signed copies of the book. Go do that now. I'm just going to smile with it for a bit now, guys. The video will end in a moment. I'm just going to smile with it. Ooh, shiny fancy book. Order it for Christmas. Let capitalism reign supreme. Ooh, buy the book. Ooh. Okay, we're done. That was louder than I expected it to be.